Good morning, everyone. This is your weekly edition of Title Scoop. This week, we're going to talk about bankruptcy. Obviously, we're going to keep it short and sweet, so we're just going to hit on some of the high points and some of the issues that we hear probably the most on the underwriting side, and some things for you to look out for. So when you're dealing with bankruptcy, there are 4 chapters that you're going to deal with the most. It's the chapter 7, 11, 12, and 13. There are other chapters in bankruptcy that people can file, but you're just not going to run into them. So if you do see one that's not one of the common 4, reach out to us. We're happy to look at it with you to figure out what you may need to do. So when reviewing a bankruptcy case, the first thing you're going to do no matter what is make sure your property is actually included. So you're going to check the Schedule A of the petition just to make sure your property is actually part of that bankruptcy. In general, just you obviously probably know this, but if someone's in bankruptcy, they can't usually sell or buy anything, so you're going to need a court order. So they're not going to be able to dispose of an asset or acquire an asset without court approval. So when looking at various title issues with regard to bankruptcy, one of the things we run into the most is the automatic stay. And that actually happens automatically when the petition's filed. So whatever bankruptcy it is, they file the petition and automatic stay goes into effect. What that means is that an enforcement action can't happen on a judgment, new lawsuits can't be filed. Where we see it probably the most is foreclosures. If a property is in foreclosure and that owner files bankruptcy, the foreclosure is basically halted until they go to court and motion for a relief from the automatic stay. That's usually granted unless there's some unforeseen circumstances. But when you have that occur on your property, you're going to want to really look at that order to see what it says. It usually won't go into effect for like 10 or 14 days. And usually the creditor is going to ask for a waiver of the appeal period, but you're just going to want to look at the language to make sure that you're okay on it. Now we're just going to go over the types of bankruptcy just really quickly as far as what to kind of look at and what each one is. So the most common is the Chapter 7, and that's a liquidation of assets. And all that means is the debtor is going to use his assets to pay off his debts. So for us, what that means is we're really going to see it mostly on purchases or sales, I should say, because the owner is trying to sell his property in order to pay off debts. If you see that, you're going to want an order free and clear from the bankruptcy court. The next one that we see probably the most frequently is the Chapter 13, and that's a reorganization. And what that requires is the debtor to file a plan with the court, and then the court has to confirm it. So if we have a Chapter 13, we do want to make sure that that plan has been confirmed, and then we're going to look at what it says. So if you have a refinance, it might be really clear that the person can refinance and the court has already approved it. If it's a sale, it gets a little grayer because we really need specific language. So sometimes we're going to ask for a court order just approving a sale just so that we have all bases covered. The Chapter 11 can be a liquidation or a reorganization, and that's really just triggered based on either an income limit being exceeded from the Chapter 7 or the debt limit being exceeded in the Chapter 13. And that's also where you're going to hear debtor in possession, that term. So just so you're aware, debtor in possession is usually with the Chapter 11. And then a Chapter 12 is the other one we see, and that's going to be really similar to a Chapter 13, except it involves farmland. So if you see one, we're going to treat it almost exactly the same as a Chapter 13. It's just that farmland is involved. So the most frequently misunderstood concept, I think, with regard to bankruptcy is the lien in, lien out concept. And what that means is that if someone has a lien going into bankruptcy, that lien is still attached to your property when you come out of bankruptcy, unless your attorney does something specific in bankruptcy to take care of it. Pretty common that we'll have a call where someone will say, hey, we have an owner who was in bankruptcy. His attorney told him that the liens were taken care of, so he doesn't understand why they're still showing. And we usually just have to explain that personal liability is discharged, but that the lien remains on the property. And the only way really to take care of that is if you do a motion and they get an order to avoid that lien. So sometimes people will go back after they've already been discharged and the bankruptcy is closed, and they will ask for a motion in order to avoid the lien. And if they can get that, then we can remove it from title. So that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any other topics you'd like discussed, let me know. If not, we'll see you next week.